Hi, everybody. This is the Dr. Debunk Weekly Podcast Show. On this show, I'm going to be debunking the medical myths, garbage, and crap that's spread by doctors and other health professionals. Dr. Debunk is the medical truth teller. Today's topic is going to be about the permeability of the human body. And what that means is, how fast are we leaking with age? The permeability theory of aging is one of the 10 theories of why we age and why we march towards disease. So I'll do a quick review since this is fairly short, because this is like really cutting edge science. This is like right there. There's not a lot of people in the scientific community that are really studying this and get it, but it's, as you'll soon see, very important. If you haven't heard, my big thing is that there are 10 theories that explain why we age at different rates and why we march towards disease at different rates. Because you can see a 50-year-old woman that looks like she's 70, and I've seen 70-year-old women that look like they're 45 or 50. And same with men. And so the two main ways you look at it is, what are the factors of human existence and our lifestyle, our genetics, our makeup, that determine the speed at which you age and the speed at which you are predisposed or susceptible to disease. And I break it out into 10 concepts or 10 ideas, theories based on real science. I'm not really interested in folklore, that have real scientific evidence to support that these theories do explain why we age quickly or slowly. Of course, we want to age slowly. And why we march towards disease. Because you can see people that are, much more susceptible. I mean, some people have the genetic structure and a lifestyle and a physical body makeup that they are resistant to smoking and will never get cancer. They'll smoke like a fish their whole life. And they have 25 to 50% more lung capacity than the average person. And I've had these people, they come in my office, I'm 70 years old, and I smoke like a fish, and there's nothing wrong with me. And that's not really true, because that guy's got emphysema, he's destroyed, 70% of his lung capacity, but he has an extra 35%. So he's still at 50% of what an average person would have been otherwise, a non-smoker. And then they have the genetic resistance and the immune system that they won't get cancer. They'll die of right heart disease. Everybody who smokes dies of congestive heart failure. So for those of you that smoke, just smoke a pack a day. If you want to die of right heart failure, I can tell you how to do it. I'm your guy. I will help you die if that's what you want to do, because according to Darwinian theories, it's kind of mean. You should be eradicated, but I don't really believe in Darwinian theories. But anyway, sarcasm, folks, sarcasm. But, I'm a doctor for 33 years, so I've watched people die for 33 years. So if you want to die of a certain disease, I can tell you how to do it. Pancreas, cancer, heart failure, stroke. I can tell you how to live. So if you smoke a pack a day for every day for 60 years, most people are toast. Or 2 packs a day for 30 years. Pick your poison. But there are these genetic freaks that can resist it. And so those people don't count, because that kind of guy would live to be 105 if he wouldn't have smoked. But he'll be dead at 72 to 80, like most people even that don't smoke. So anyway, these theories explain all this. And so today we're going to discuss the permeability theory of aging. And what that means is the rate at which you are losing cell wall permeability is the rate at which you will age and die. The rate at which your cells of your body are losing their permeability, the natural permeability, is the rate at which you're going to march towards disease. And the common way to look at it is, we are leaking with age. The older we get, the more we leak. And you can ask anybody my age or older, the human body starts to leak with age. We will finally leak from every hole in our body. Sorry, but it's just how it is. But the reason we're doing it is because of what's happening at a cellular level. The cells of our body, right? The cells are like houses. How many houses do you have in your body? 40 trillion. That's trillion with a T. And every one of these cells has a cell wall. There's actually multiple cell walls, but we won't get into that. But the cell walls would be like the walls of your house. So everybody, say, lives in a house. And the house being non-permeable is very important. You want all the seals on the doors and the windows to be intact. You want the roof to be intact. You don't want holes in your walls. But even, the insulation and all the seals around the door jambs, you want them because otherwise, if you have no seal on the bottom of your door jamb, then you have a freeway for bugs to get in your house. Ladies, raise your hands if you want bugs in your house. Women especially don't like bugs. But, the older your home gets, finally you have to replace the weather seals and the window seals. And if you don't, then your house will start leaking. Bad stuff will leak in. Bugs, rodents, rats, whatever. Tarantulas. I live in the boonies. My wife doesn't want tarantulas in the house. And then stuff leaks out, like the heating and air conditioning system, right? Like, for those of you that live in older homes, you really need to crawl in your attic and look at all the ducting. This is like free carpentry or free house fixing stuff for you, fixer-upper. You really need to look at all your ducting system because the cheap ducts, even at 10 years, all the taping is coming off, and those stupid plastic ducts they put up there, they have holes everywhere. So you turn on your air conditioner and you're cooling your attic. You're heating your attic. Again, raise your hands. How many people want to do that? Well, our body and these cell walls are the same thing. Only much bigger, the concept is vast, and it's relatively new. But the reality is, just like our homes, our cell walls with age start to leak, and they leak bad stuff in and leak good stuff out. And we have 40 trillion. And the cell walls, the walls of our houses and our body, they're these complex fat layers. We call them lipid, bi, and trilayers. It's a whole area of cell molecular biology and study. The cell walls are like the walls of an old castle. You see the movies, how castles had these, like the really giant castles would have these gigantically thick walls, and they were actually so big that homes would be built into the walls, and rooms and prisons. There were stores. A whole community, a whole world lived in the cell walls of these castles, in the walls of these castles. That's what our cell walls are. They're even more complex than that. The cell walls in every cell of our body is almost like an organ system in itself. It's almost like a factory all by itself. It really is a factory all by itself. And so it's vastly more complicated than we ever dreamed of, like when I was in medical school and studying this stuff. Even in just that, like 40 years ago, it is so different. And so what we've come to realize is the factors of lifestyle have a tremendous effect on our cell walls functioning correctly the way they should. And some of the basic concepts are with aging, the reason they don't work as well, these wall factories, is because the body rebuilds itself. And this is one of the areas of significant and massive rebuilding. We are always rebuilding our cell walls. And due to the sheer massive job it is, since every cell, 40 trillion cells, has to do it, it's this huge system of rebuilding and reproduction and has to do with the way cells divide and regrow. Anyway, it's a big deal. And the biggest thing for practicality's sake is it just becomes less efficient with age. And that is the biggest reason with age, as I said. Anybody my age or older can tell you that we start leaking. And so the two big concepts are then, how do we minimize this effect? The effect of these two things. One is we don't want good stuff leaking out. And two, we don't want bad stuff leaking in. So let me start with just some of the little basic concepts. And that is leaking in. what starts to leak in that's catastrophic is bacteria, viruses, and fungus. It's catastrophic because this goes along with one of the other theories of aging that I already did a podcast on, the infectious theory of aging. And the infectious theory of aging says the rate at which you're being infected is the rate at which you're going to age and die, because we are being slowly infected all the way to death. And this is the main reason we are being infected. The permeability theory of aging is the main explanation for why we're so resistant when we're younger to bacteria, virus, and fungus, germs getting in, versus when we get older, how easily they can get in. Because we're starting to leak. The cell walls are not intact, and bacteria, and especially viruses, start to get in huge amounts. And so we'll get to what that means in a minute. But the other thing we've come to learn, and this is such a new field where there's so much we have to learn, is inflammatory stimulators go haywire. Now what that means is it's playing on another theory of aging, the oxidation inflammation theory. But we are slowly being inflamed all the way to death. The rate at which we're being inflamed is the rate at which we're aging and dying. And of course I did a 3-part podcast on that. You should listen to that too. Anyway, but our body regulates inflammation, and one of the main causes of chronic inflammation, bad inflammation, unrelenting inflammation, is these inflammatory stimulators called interleukins. And there's already been enough work to show that as our cell walls are weakening and they're becoming more permeable, the inflammatory stimulators, especially 1 and 6, interleukins 1 and 6, they're leaking into the cells at a much higher rate. They should not be doing that. And that is setting up a big part of the chronic inflammatory patterns of aging. I mean, I know I said a lot, but the bottom line is we don't want the normal inflammatory stimulators that are in our bloodstream to get into the cells at a higher than normal rate. They normally get in there. It's normal. I talk about that in the inflammatory podcast. The problem is, as your cells start to leak, these things are getting where they don't belong. And that is a mess. It's like, do you really want a bunch of ants from outside your house getting inside your house? But that's what's kind of happening. And it's a good analogy because these inflammatory interleukins are very small molecules, and it doesn't take much leaking for them to start getting in. And that's why we see the effects, the actual changes in the human body in it used to be the late 40s. Now in this last year, I've seen an influx of people from 40 to 45 years old having the same problems that people around 50 just 5 years ago were having. 20 years ago, I would see it at 55. It's in the last 20 years, I would say that in the last 10 years, an entire generation is manifesting age-related symptoms, disease-related symptoms, a full 10 years younger. And all 10 theories of aging contribute to that, but this one is a big one. The last thing that's critical about this, and our limited knowledge of it, is the fact that the vascular endothelium is the gatekeepers of the human body. And as we lose the permeability of our vascular endothelium, you might as well, you're not going to last long. Now, that's big words. What's the vascular endothelium? Okay, the blood vessels of our body, the bloodstream, the entire blood vessels, is a gigantic network of roads. And I talk about this in the circulatory theory of aging. But we have literally 3,000 times more roads in our body than all the roads on planet Earth. For those of you who like numbers, there are 30 million roads on planet Earth. 30 million. We have 3,000 Earth's roads. It would take 3,000 planet Earths to equal all the roads in your body. That's how many roads we have. And that's called the vascular system, or all the arteries and veins. Well, the endothelium is this thin little lining layer of cells. It's a bunch of specialized houses that line every artery and vein in our body. And so, obviously, they're vast. It's vast how many there are. And when these cells start to lose their permeability, really bad stuff starts to happen, because they're the gatekeepers from stuff from the blood to get into the capillary beds, which would be equal to the supermarkets. In other words, all the cells of our body are fed by the capillary beds, which would be equal to a supermarket. And we have 100 billion supermarkets, and what actually gets through the door of the supermarket would be equal to the vascular endothelium. And so if they start leaking, it'd be like all the criminals are getting into the supermarkets and poisoning the food because there's no more guards anymore. It's about the best analogy. But and so for all of these reasons, we don't want to start leaking with age. And so we'll take a break, and then I'll come back and give you a little bit about what we can do about it, because there's not a lot of direct things, but we'll come back after the break and talk about that. Hi everybody, Dr. Debunk here, and I bet you think this is going to be a commercial about KSK Cold Spray. But you're wrong, because if you've been listening to my podcast, then you know I've been pushing my spray. But the flu season's over, and so I wanted to mention to you something that some of you know I do, but that is about weight loss and weight maintenance, or controlling your weight, the whole subject of weight. I've mentioned it in some of my podcasts, giving little bits of information. But I have been studying weight and helping my patients lose and then maintain weight for 11 years. And this program I've developed with much trial and suffering is now capable of getting 30 to 50 pounds off just about anybody in 3 to 4 months. You heard it right, 30 to 50 pounds, 3 or 4 months. And so what you should do is, just to get some information, so what you should do is go to Dr. Debunk website, that's drdebunk.com. If you haven't been there, there's videos and some information, but I have a little introductory video there about weight, how it works, why we are so fat in America, why it's so difficult. It's about 30 minutes, and if you watch it, you'll get it. You'll get what I do, what I can do for you, and how the program works. So that's it. I'm Dr. Debunk, the medical truth teller. Welcome back. I've been talking about the permeability theory of aging, which just basically says the rate at which we leak is the rate at which we're going to age and die, and the rate at which the cells of our body are leaking is the rate at which we're going to march towards disease. And as I've said a couple times, anybody over 60 knows that we are leaking with age. It's not a happy experience. Anyway, and so I was explaining, the two principles of leaking out and leaking in, and I was mostly talking about bad stuff leaking in, but I wanted to finish up just a little bit about leaking out and leaking in, but probably more leaking out. This is a really new area theoretically. It's part theory, part fact, and it's the concept of cellular superpores. And what is a superpore, you ask? Well, this isn't even 10 years old. They started to realize that the cell walls, remember the castle walls, the cells of our body are like the walls of a castle. Well, castles have gates in them. So the walls could have these gates. Well, we have big gates in our cell walls, and they call them superpores. They have some other names, something pores. But anyway, it's really relatively new, but what can happen with the cells of our body is like the gates can open up. I mean, we didn't even know these gates existed very long ago. I'm not really sure when they first discovered these, but the cell walls, your houses, could have, like, instead of a front door, a garage door. This big garage door opens up in the front of your house. And so we think, and this is all going to probably be proven very different as we understand more, that one of the main reasons for superpores is for the cells to extrude trash, to just vomit out all kinds of metabolic waste products that can't be taken out normally with the regular trash. I mean, our bodies, like a house, you would have, the adults that live there bring the food in, and then they take the trash out. Well, sometimes you can't take all the trash out through the doors on a high enough basis. And so the idea is the superpores open up and the cell vomits out a bunch of stuff. We think it has to do with cellular reproduction too, how cells multiply, rebuild themselves, make a new cell, that these play a role. But what they've discovered, the bad thing they've discovered, is that with age, a superpore will open up and it won't shut. So could you imagine leaving all the doors in your house just open at night, all night? Well, I live in the country, and if I leave my doors open up, who knows what's going to be in my house, from skunks to raccoons to tarantulas, rattlesnakes. I mean, I don't think my wife would like that, because she really hates rattlesnakes. I mean, they do not come around my house, because Oakley Annie comes out on her and she blasts away at them, and they don't do well. It's kind of funny. But anyway, I don't know if I'm weird. I like rattlesnakes. I really do. If I didn't have grandkids and dogs, I'd let them roam all over the place, because they eat squirrels, and I hate squirrels. You have no idea how much I hate those furry cockroaches, because all of us people that live in the country knows that squirrels are furry cockroaches. They're not really squirrels. They're walking land sharks or furry cockroaches, and they eat and destroy and annihilate everything. They should be eradicated from the face of the planet, but you can't kill them, because it doesn't matter how much you kill them. They come back. Sorry, little diatribe there. But anyway, you can't leave the doors open to your homes, because if you live in the city, all the criminals would come in, whatever. Well, with age, these superpores stay stuck open, and we know, nothing about why. I haven't read anything. I've looked around. But the whole field, as I mentioned, it's just so new. But the implications, just from what I've told you, even though we're pretty ignorant still in science about this, are just huge. Because we don't want to leak with age. We don't want bad stuff coming in, and we don't want good stuff going out. We don't want superpores being stuck open, and all the variations. And so let me just get to then, what can we do about it? I mean, how do you slow down the rate at which you're leaking with age? And the best answer I can tell you is, do the other 9 theories of aging well. In other words, because we're talking about stuff at a cellular level now, which we have no control of at a lifestyle level, not directly. And so it just comes into play then that doing the other 9 factors of optimal health living will minimize the rate at which you're going to have permeability problems. But there is one thing that becomes very obvious then, and very apparent at this point, and that is water, water, water. And I talk about this in the whole dietary theory of aging, diet, nutrition, how it's one of the concept of optimal health living, obviously. And water's part of that, but water in itself is an issue. And so having an optimal health approach to water is critical. It's pretty easy. Humans should drink deep well water. That's where it should come from. That's what's natural. I don't care what you believe in about where we come from as humans, but planet Earth as we know it, Mother Nature as we know her, has provided that humans should drink naturally filtered water, which is deep well water, away from any pollutants, chemicals, pesticides, factories, and other junk that humans have thrown into the aquifer. And that's what we have for us on planet Earth. And so pure deep well water, and drinking, in this case, as far as permeability, lots of water. People in modern society do not drink enough water. And getting away from all the fake stuff, especially sodas, and any other kind of fake sugar drink, artificial sweeteners, and all the junk that goes in the water, just water. Because our cells are 50 to 60% water. And so the cell membranes, what we've been talking about, it's all about being supported by water. And so having great health water-wise would obviously have a dramatic effect on the speed at which you're going to break down the permeability of your cells. And so right now, that's about the best we can do, is have an adequate, and probably for most Americans, that's the biggest thing we violate, is we don't drink enough water, and it's not clean water. I personally do not trust filtered water. I can't get by all these hoo-hoo water companies that make their super reverse osmosis, magic water, filtered, added minerals. I don't believe they filter it as well as they do, if at all. And this is a little redundant, but I talked about it. I mean, when you see those dopey water machines outside of a supermarket, do you think the guy ever changes a filter? Why? Why would he? Because they know how to add minerals to water now to make it taste however you want. It's been studied. They take groups of people and find out what flavored what minerals do you have to add to water to give it a taste that people like. So you could be drinking gutter water flavored with minerals and, it tastes good. All they did was filter sand out of it. I mean, it's the potential abuse for filtered water is so off the chart. I just can't get my head around it. And then Mother Nature tells us, and whether you believe Mother Nature is God, aliens, or evolution, it doesn't matter. We need deep well water. That's what we should drink, naturally filtered. Anyway, okay, I beat that to death. So that's pretty much it. Water and really doing the other theories of aging, doing the lifestyle things, is our best defense against slowly leaking with age. And I don't know about you, but I do not like leaking with age. Anyway, that's it. I'm Dr. Debunk, and this has been the permeability theory of aging and how it works. It is definitely probably the newest and most not understood, but over the coming 10, 20 years, we're going to know a lot. I'm Dr. Debunk, the medical truth teller. Thanks for listening.